Welcome back to our Beatrice YouTube channel. In today's class, we'll learn how to make this beautiful corset dress with puff sleeve and side godet. It's a very simple tutorial and it's beginner friendly. So this is what it looks like on the front, and the back looks like this. Okay, so if this is something you would like to learn, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. Okay, so this is a corset dress and it has lots of sewing technique involved. So we're going to be drafting this pattern and then we're going to moving it to our fabric and also sewing it together in this video. So because this is a dress, I have my basic dress pattern drafted like this. This is my armhole line, this is my waistline, and this is my hip line, and this is the hem. So this is the front bodies and this is the back bodies, and that is the zipper allowance for the back bodies. So I drafted both the front and back together so that we can see the variations that we're going to be making. So the first thing I'm going to do is to adapt this to a corset pattern. From the shoulder point, I'm going to mark my bust point. That's your nipple point. That's 10.5 for me. And then also I'm going to mark my under bust, and that's 14 inches for me. So after making all those markings, I'm going to make them into a straight line. So this is my bust point and this is my under bust. Okay, so I'm just going to label that. So after marking that, the next thing is for me to tighten my under bust. So I'm going to dwell on this too much because we have been drafting corset a lot on the channel, so you want to check that out. I just added 1/2 inch on both sides, and then I'm going to connect my new dark lines to my waistline. Okay, so I'm connecting this and this back to my waistline, and then I'm going to extend my bust, my nipple line. Remember, this line we got it by dividing our bust span. So this center line, I'm going to extend it to my new bust point. So now the next thing is for me to connect this using my curved ruler to my bust point. So I'm not going to let it touch this bust point. I'll just go down by 1/2 inch. Like I said, I'm sure by now we understand all of this. So now I've done my first curve, and then this is the second curve. Okay, so now the next thing is for me to check what I have on my shoulder, and then I'm going to divide that by 2, and on that point I'm going to mark from there to my bust point for my shoulder line, which is this. Okay, so now I'm going to measure how high I want this corset to be. So from my bust point, you can decide how much cleavage you want to show. From your bust point, you can measure 4 inches, 3.5 inches, even 5 inches upward if you don't want to show too much. But for me, 4 inches is fine. So from here I'm just going to be going upwards by 4 inches, and then the next thing is to measure how deep I want this corset to be on the center. So for my center part on my corset, I want it to be around 8.5 inches or 9 inches deep. I don't want it too deep. So here I can just maintain what I have here, which is my chest line, which is 8.5. So on that point, I'm going to go inwards by 1/2 inch for that center line that you see between your corset. So I'll do the same thing for my bust point, and then I'm going to connect these 2 lines. Okay, so after connecting the line using my curves, I'm going to connect from my bust height here to my center line. So I want to go for like a sweetheart neckline, so this is why I'm connecting this. So I'm connecting like this, and then on the other side I'm also going to connect this to my armhole. But for the armhole, because this is a corset, on the armhole line I'm going to go down by 1/2 inch, and then I'll connect this line. I'll reconnect this straight line. So I'm going to be connecting this new line to this 1/2 inch that I just created. Okay, so this is just me trying to find a perfect curve, and then at the same time I'm going to blend this as much as I can. Okay, so I have that now. So now I'm going to draw my first corset curve by just placing my curve on my under bust and also on this line. So this is my first curve, and then for the second curve from my side, this pattern does not have any seam allowance yet, so I don't have a seam allowance on my pattern. I'm going to be doing that when I'm transferring to my fabric. So from here I'm going to come inwards by 1 inch on that ½ inch line, and then again I'll take my curve and then I'm going to draw my second curve. Okay, so you can see that my cup now is taken care of. This is what my cup look like. So now I'm done with the neckline for the front. Now I'm just going to move to the back, and then for the back it's quite simple. I'll just go down by ½ inch, just the same way I did for the front, and then I'm going to measure how deep I want my back to be. Usually a bit deep. You can maintain what you have here, but you can just go down by 1 or 2 inches. I'm going to be going down by like 1½ inches, and then I'm going to connect this to my new armhole line. Hope you can see this. So now from there I'm connecting to this point, and then I'm going to extend it to my zipper allowance. So we have this now. This is taken care of. The next thing is for us to draw out the pattern for the lower bodies. So for this pattern now, it depends on the shape and style that you want to go for. Okay, so for the front, on the hem I want like 4 inches space for the hem line, for the center line that's going to be on the hem. So because I want 4 inches and this pattern is drafted on fold, this is just the half scale for the front, so it means I'm going to be measuring 2 inches. So by the time we connect it, we add front, the both sides together, we're going to have 4 inches. I hope you understand that. So which means if you want 3 inches, you're going to be using 1½, and if you want 2 inches, you're going to use 1. So on the hemline here, I'm going to mark 2 inches inwards. I hope we're able to see that. So now I'm going to connect. What I'm trying to do is to connect from here all the way to my waistline. So I'll try to make this easier for me. I can just go up a bit and mark another 2 inches, and then I can start to increase it a bit. So now, using my curved ruler now, I'm going to try to see if I can just connect it straight from there. So now you can see our waistline. From my waistline here, I'm connecting from here all the way like this. Okay, so I have my curve like this, and then I'm going to connect it. Okay, so now I'm going to shift the curve again, and then just make my connection up to the 2 inches mark that I drafted there. Okay, so that is done. This is what my front look like. The next thing now is to go to the back and do the same thing. So for the back, I'm not going to extend my connection up to the hemline. From my waistline, I'm just going to measure like 5 inches downwards. Okay, I'm doing 5 inches because of the zipper. I don't want the zipper to get to that design, so I want it to be long enough for the person to be able to wear it. So that's why I'm doing 5 inches. You can do 4, you can do 3, you can do 6, whatever it is that you want, but 5 inches is fine for me. So I'm marking 5 inches here. Then after marking my 5 inches now, I'm going to connect from my waistline all the way to that 5 inches. So you can see that the back is quite easier. So now, using my curve again, I'm going to connect. You can see that the connection of the front and back is on the waistline. So for the back, I'm also connecting from my waistline all the way to that point like this, and then I'm just going to extend this into my zipper allowance. So this is the pattern that we're going to follow for this, and we'll be modifying this. So after drafting this pattern now, I'm going to cut this out. Okay, I'm going to cut this out. I'll start by cutting the hack for the back, for the front. So now You can actually cut your half length separately, or you can just cut it as a long dress, just like I'm doing, but I feel this is easier, so I'm cutting like this. So this is the front. The next thing is to cut off your corset part. So if you're going to be using a yoke for this, you keep this upper part, but for this I'm not working with a yoke, so I'll just discard this. So this is my center front. Now I'm going to remove the skirt part, but before I remove it, I want to label this front, and then I'm going to label this back, so that I'm not going to get confused. So now I'll cut the lower part for the back, for the front also. Okay, so the camera stopped recording, I didn't realize it. So now I've cut out all the patterns for my front, and then on this upper part I forgot to mention that you need to tighten that upper part to avoid gaping. So to do that, on my center line I went on both sides by 1/4 of an inch, and then I connected it to my bust point, so you can see the space that we have there. Okay, so here now, this was how it was. So from this center point I went by the side by 0.75 and 0.75 on both sides, then I connected it to my bust point, and then I cut it out. So these are my cups. This is the center front, this is the side front, and this is the rest of the hemline. So now we're going to move straight to the back and also cut our back pattern. Okay, so for the back also, I'm just going to cut the neckline area. Remember, there's no yoke for this, so I don't need the upper part. I've just discarded it. And then the shape that we created for the back, I'm also going to cut this off, and then extend this to my zipper. Then the excess that I have for my center back here, I'm going to cut it off. So before we separate this, you can label this your side center back, and this your side back. And here I'm going to label this my CB also. Okay, so now I'm going to keep the upper part first. I'll just cut that also. I'm going to keep the upper part first and go and cut it on my main fabric, and then we can now focus on the lower part of this dress. Okay, so now for the lower part, I'm going to bring in the lower part of the front also. So this is the lower part for the front, and this is the lower part for the back. So now what I'm going to do now is to remember, these are the side. This is the side facing my center front. Remember where we made our curve. So this is the center front, and this is the side center back. So this that we have here are the side, and this lower part is not going to be having any side seam. So because of that, we are going to join the side seam together here, and I'm going to hold it down with a tape, because this is not going to be having any side seam. So here now it is joined, and then I'm going to hold everything together with my masking tape. Okay, so now to introduce volume to this, if you look at the pattern, you will see that the lower part is looking like a flare. Okay, and we still have this as just like a straight pencil straight skirt. So to make that look like a flare, just like what we have at the center on our thumbnail, I'm going to be creating slash lines on these patterns. So now you can create as much slash line as you want. I'm just going to be creating 2 slash lines on both sides. So here I'm just going to mark 3 inches here, and then 3 inches here, and I'm going to connect this upwards. So for the front, this is going to be my first slash line, and this is going to be my second slash line for the front. So the same way I have done for the front, on the back also, I'm just going to measure what I have here and then divide it randomly, and then I'm going to connect this also upwards so that I can have my slash line. So this is the first one for the front, and this is the second one for the back also. Sorry, this is the back and this is the front. So now the next thing I need to do now is to open my slash line. So for the back, remember that we have at the upper part is extended to the back, but the front does not have anything like that. So now we need to close this dart, because we're going to be sewing this back to the front and we want it to be exactly the same thing. So to close this dart, I opened one of the slash lines so that I can transfer the dart. Then I'm going to close the dart now and hold it with a masking tape. So when you close your dart, you may have some shortage there. I'm just going to place another paper there and then retrace it back to what I have. Okay, so the main thing is you want this upper part to rhyme with what you have on your lower part, so that you're not going to be having any shortage by the time you want to sew them back together. So I'm just going to hold this together with a tape again, and then you can use your free hand to just withdraw your connection. So I hope you understand that. So after doing this now, the next thing is for me to open all of my slash lines. I'm going to cut out all the slash lines that I created, and then I'm going to spread this on another paper. So these slash lines are, I have opened one already, so now I'm going to open all of this also, and then I'll bring in a fresh paper and then I'm going to spread on it. So now when you're cutting it, you cut up to the tip, but you're not going to cut completely. What you just want this to do is to introduce more volume. So you can see that we can spread it as much as we want, just to introduce more volume to our pattern, so that it can look like a flare, just like what we have on our pattern. So here I'm just going to write C so that I can differentiate where I have my front and back. Remember, the back stops here, so you can write SB here and SF here, so that I'll know that this midpoint here is where they meet. So now I'll cut the slash lines and then bring in a paper to spread it for us. Okay, so I have this fresh paper underneath this now, so I'm going to bring in my pattern and then I'm going to spread this as much as I want. So now this is totally up to you, the volume you are willing to go for, how big you want this to be. So for me, I think I'm just going to be spreading it like 4 inches apart. So I'm going to place the first one here, I hope you can see it, and then I'm going to use my glue to gum it, because I don't want too much masking tape to be on this, so that we can see what I'm doing very well. I'm just going to dab a little bit of glue there, and then I'm going to place it on this new pattern. So now after that, now I'm going to mark 4 inches apart. You can do 5, you can do 6, and then the next one, which is this, I'm going to place it on this part now, and then apply some glue there also, and then glue it down. So that is how I'm going to spread all of this. I'm sure you know how to do slash and spread now. We've been doing this on the channel a lot, so by now I'm sure we understand what it means. So now I'm going to let it relax well, and then move to the next one, and then I'll measure another 4 inches and then place it on it like this, and then I'm going to spread. So that's how I'm going to spread everything. Okay, so I have spread all of them now. It's quite big, I hope you can see this. So the next thing now is to make sure that all of the hem rhyme with each other. So using my curve ruler, I'm just going to go ahead now. You can also use your free hand. I'll just mark the, so I'm going to connect it. Like I said, you can use your free hand like I'm doing. So all of the hem, the new hem, you can see where it stops. I'm going to connect all of them together, and then we're going to cut it. So this is just me connecting my hem lines back together. So if you want your pattern to be bigger than this, you can make it bigger. It depends on you and what you want. So after connecting all of them now, I'll just go in with my scissors, and then I'm going to cut it. So also on the upper part, you're just going to cut exactly what you have here on your upper part. That's what you're going to cut. So just cutting exactly what I have. And then also on the center back, you're going to cut what you have there also. So basically, just the only difference is just the hem. Other ones you just cut out the exact shape that you have. So this is the center front. I'm going to cut out what I have on my center front also. Remember, we're still going to sew this back to the other parts of the front body, so you want it to be exactly the same so that it can fit into what you want. Okay, so now this is our new back panel. The next thing now is to create all of the panels. So if you want to use just one fabric for this, you just place this on your fabric and cut it out. But because we want to mix fabrics, we're going to be creating panels here, and then we're going to cut it out separately. Okay, so to create this pattern, you can start from the upper part or the lower part, but to make it easier, I'm just going to start from the first part. So you can just place the picture of what you want beside and then just mirror exactly what you have. So on the lower part here now, I'm going to go up by 2 inches or 2.5 inches. I'm using my blue marker so that we can understand what I'm doing. So we are treating the center front first. So after going upwards by 2.5 inches there, the next line that I'm going to go for, I'll go up by 6 inches. You can do 5 inches. It's totally up to you. Then from there again, I'm also going to go up by 6 inches again. Okay, so that is that for my front. And then for the back also, I'll move to the center back area, which is here. And then on my center back again, on the hem, I'm going to go upwards by around 2 inches here, marked with my blue marker. And then from there, I'm going to measure 5 inches. Okay, so you can do whatever it is that you want, 5 inches or 4.5 inches. And then from there, I'm going to mark another 5 inches. And then after marking this, the next 5 inches, or you can just measure what you have left and then divide them into 4 and then use that to mark your points. But I'm just eyeballing this. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 points for the center back, and then for the center front I have, so this is quite big, so I hope you understand. Just follow what I'm doing. I have 1, 2, 3 for the front. So now the next thing now is to start connecting them together. So remember that this is where the front and back join together on the side. So you may want to label this your C. Just write, I'm just writing C, 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 so that we know that this is the point, that's the side seam where the front and back join together. So that's going to assist you in connecting them. So now what we want to do now is to start connecting it. So the first point here, I'm going to connect it to the first point on my center back also. So again, you can just mark like maybe 6 inches downwards here also, or 5 inches. So that's going to guide you on how you're going to rule your line. So here on the center point, that's going to be my reference. From the upper part here, I'm marking around 5 inches, and then you can use your free hand, or if you can use a curve, just use it. And then I'm going to start connecting them. So now from that center, I'll connect first to the center front, and then again I'm going to connect it back to my side front, to my center back. I hope we understand that. So I'm just connecting to create the panels that I need. So if your curve is not giving you what you want and you feel your hand can do that, you can also go in with your hand. Okay, so this is my first line now, and I'm going to label that one. Okay, so now after creating the first one for the first ankara pattern, then you move and create your second one. So for the second one, again on the center line, I'm just going to measure like 5 inches downwards again, yeah, and then I'm going to connect from here to the second point that I have on the front, and also the second point that I have on the back. So basically that is what I'm doing. But when you're doing this, just make sure you try as much as possible to make them look uniform, so that it's not going to be looking awkward. So from here now, I'm connecting this to the front, and again I'm connecting this to the back, and then I'll try as much as possible to make them rhyme with each other. So that is what I'm doing. Okay, so this is going to be the second one, and I'm going to label it so. Okay, so now the next line now on the center front, again depend on the amount of ankara, the number of ankara fabric you want to use. I'm going to go down by 5 inches again, so that's what I'm doing. Then this, now I'm going to connect it to this point and also to this third point. So I hope you understand that by now. Okay, so the blue marker is not showing well, so I'm using the red black marker now. So this is the first one, the second one, and then I'm gonna head to create the third one. So now for the last one, now I'm going to connect it from this tip of the hem all the way to my marking. So here I'm just going to go down by another 5 inches, as you can see, and then I have 5 inches here, and then I'm going to connect this to the first. Remember, we have 4 marks for the front and 3 for the back. So now I'm connecting from this tip at the front. Okay, so now you can use a curve also again, or you can use your free hand. So from that tip I'm connecting all the way to the 5 inches that I marked at the center, and then from there I'm connecting again to the 2 inches that I marked on this upper part. So if you have a curve, you can use that, for I'm just drawing a rough sketch here. So by the time I draw it out and I'm not okay with what I have, I can still retrace it. So now this is the 5th and the last one. So this is number 4 and this is number 5. So the next thing now is to cut out these new panels now, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut them on my fabric. So because we are cutting and joining back, remember to add half an inch seam allowance to join them back, so that you're not going to be having any shortage along this line. Remember, we're still going to sew this line back to the upper part. So if you don't add your half an inch, and if you're adding half an inch, make sure you sew by the half an inch that you added, the exact half an inch, so that you're not going to be having any shortage when you want to add this back to the upper part. So now that we have this, I'm just going to go in with my scissors now and then cut it out. So when you're cutting this, you put your fabric on fold. Remember, we just have one side. So now to cut the other side, I'm going to be cutting it together, and then I'm going to put my fabric on fold to cut it. So now I'm cutting out the first panel. So when you're doing yours, you can just remove all this paper that we use, since you already have a new pattern. But I don't want us to get confused, that's why I just left it like that, so that we'll see exactly what I am doing well. So now this is our first panel, and then you can indicate this to be your center front. So all this marking is important, and this is going to be your center back. Okay, you don't want to get confused. And also, before you cut it out, you can just mark your balance lines. So this balance lines is going to guide you when you want to sew it back. So now just mark all of this, and when you cut it on your fabric, you just notch those points. So I'm just indicating these points now to be my balance line, so that it's going to assist me in sewing this back. So this is the first one. Now I'm going to go over now and cut out the second one. So after cutting this now, I'm going to remove all of this paper, so that it's going to make this work easier for me. So when you remove your paper, just write your center front here, write this as your second pattern, and then write your center back, and then you know your balance line that you are matching to the upper part. So this is what it does. Remember now, see, I have this here and here. So once you place it together, you know that this is what you sew to this. It's just going to guide you when you're sewing this back to your main fabric. So now I can remove all of this now for the front also. So now for the third one, after marking your balance line, you just cut it out. So So it's that simple. Just cut it out, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the fourth and the fifth one. So now I'll take all of this to my fabric and then cut it out. So now I'm going to remove this. I'll write 3 here, and I'll write the center back here also, because you don't want to forget this is the center back and this is the center front. So now I've cut everything out. Now the next thing is for me to take all of them to my main fabric now and then cut it out. Don't forget to add your necessary allowances. So I've gone ahead to cut this on my fabric. So for the upper part, this is the center front, and I added allowances on the dart line, as we can see. So this is the center front, this is the side front. I remember when we were drafting it, we did not include side seam allowance, so I just went ahead to add my 1.5 inches allowance on the side. So this, I'm using this ankara print for the cup area. So these are the 2 cups. I also added allowances around the cup, and then I fused my wording to it because that's what I'm used to pad it. You can also use a ready-made wrap-up. So this is for the front, and for the back, this is the center back. I added allowance round. I did not add allowance where I have my zipper allowance because I already have it there. And then on the side also, I went ahead to add my 1.5 inches allowance to the side seam. Okay, so that is it for the upper part. Now for the lower part, remember I'm using 5 different types of ankara, and then we labeled it. So it has been labeled. So these are the ankara that I'm using. I just placed my pattern on it. So the next thing you need to do now is to, and the ankara was placed on fold so that I can cut these 2 sides together. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to note my balance lines that I marked, and then I'm just going to notch it so that I can use them to match each other when I want to sew it. So now we move to sewing this proper. First thing I'm going to do is to take my center front and my side front, and then I'm going to join it on the dart area. Then I'll sew the cups. So we've been doing this. I don't want this video to be too long. The cutting is already very long, so we're just going to rush through the sewing. I'm going to sew the cup together, fix it in the space that we have here, and then I'm also going to sew the. Okay, so I've gone ahead to join the darts together, and then I fixed my cup. So after fixing my cup, I joined the dart for the back also. Then I sew it on this side using the 1.5 inches allowance that I left. So this is what I have. This is the front and this is the back. So I went ahead to cut out my lining also, and I did exact same thing on my lining. So now to turn the lining and the main fabric, I'm just going to place them against each other like this, and then I'm going to sew it round on the neckline and also on the center back area, leaving this place to turn it. Okay, so now that is it about the upper part. So for the lower part now, I'm going to assemble all of my pattern as you have seen, and then you can see that I left allowance for sewing it back. So I'm going to sew 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and 4 to 5. So I'm going to sew all of them now together, and I'm going to use my balance lines as indication, so it's going to guide me. You can see them, so just notch that area and then you match it together, so it will just help you to sew them. Then I'll bring it back to show us how we're going to fix it to the upper bodies. Okay, so I've gone ahead to join them together, and like I said, your notches is just going to help you. So you can see my notches here, just place them against each other and it will assist you. So this is the center front and this is the center back. Okay, so now this is for the first one, and then I have the exact same thing for the other side also. So this is the second one. So now we're going to sew this, but before I sew it, I have this trimming here. Okay, so I'm just going to sew this trimming on the lines that I sew it, that I joined them together just to beautify it. So I'm going to be sewing these trimmings on top of it, and then after doing that, I'm going to bring in my so I'm going to bring in my dress now, and then I'm going to attach it to the side where we cut it from. Okay, so this is the front. Remember, the one for the front gets to the hem, while the one for the back stops around the waist area. So I've gone ahead to fix my zipper to the back, and see I fixed it up to like 1/2 inch to sew the lower part to it. And then again, I've also fixed a sleeve to it. So initially I didn't want to add a sleeve to this. You can see that I drafted it in form of a tube because the sleeve is quite big and I thought I was not going to have enough fabric for this. Sorry, I ran out of black thread. That was why I used this blue to fix my zipper. I'm still going to remove it and change it to a black thread later. So now I intended to just make a tube and then do maybe a detachable sleeve for this because I don't have enough fabric, but my fabric was enough, so I just made this puff sleeve. Okay, it's just a regular puff sleeve and then I just attached this somewhere there. So if you're going to be fixing a sleeve to yours, it's very easy for you if you included this in your pattern. Remember when I was drafting my corset pattern, I just drafted it like a tube. I did not include any armhole, so I just had to manage and put the sleeve somewhere. So I have several tutorials on how you can draft a corset with armhole on the channel, so you can check that out and use that for yours if you want to fix a sleeve. But if you want to make it like a tube, then you can go ahead and use this exact same pattern. So now I'm going to go over to the machine now and fix this to the side. So now I have a notch placed on the side, so I'm going to match the notch now and then fix the one for the front. So this is the one for the back, so this goes to this side. So the one for the front, you will see it immediately because of the way it is drafted. Remember, for the back, we stopped the cuff around the waist area, so you can see that all of the fabric is present like this. But in case of the front, you can see it that is just curved like this all the way to the hem. So this is the front and the other side is back. So now I'm going to fix this to the front like I'm fixing a godet, like this, and then I'm going to sew it around, and then I'll do the same thing for the other side. This video is already very long, so I don't want it too long, and I'll bring it back to show us what it looks like. Okay, so I've gone ahead to sew it, and as you can see, I just sew it along the arc that we created. So this is the front and this is what we have for the back. Okay, so you can see that the back stops, it's just like a basket. It stops like 5 inches below the waistline, and this is what it looks like on the hemline. So it is the same thing that we have on this side is exactly what we have on the other side. So this is the volume that 4 inches space gave me. If you want it bigger than this, you just need to increase the opening, the space that you used in opening your slash and spread when you were slashing it. And this is a sleeve also. So this is a puff sleeve. I have several puff sleeves on the channel, but if you want me to make a video on how I was able to make this particular puff sleeve, let me know in the comment section down below, and we're going to record a video detailed tutorial on how I was able to achieve it. So this is the cup part and this is what the back is looking like. So now I'll take this to the mannequin so that we can see what it looks like. Okay, so this is what the dress looks like on the mannequin. This is the cup side and this is our puff sleeve, and these are our designs on the lower part. So you can see how lovely this is looking. It's a very simple tutorial and it is beautiful. I hope you enjoyed making this tutorial with me. If you enjoyed this, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.